say to Machilipatnam, isn't it? We have seen the Dutch had come here. So the weather, the geology, the oceans, these became subjects of study. And weather stations were put up at different places. And weather stations kept daily weather recording. And daily weather recordings are there now for about 120, even earlier, maybe from 1830s onwards. There are this about 200 years later are there. It was found that initially, if you combine the data of all of them, so that's what why I'm saying global warming. It is not warming in Vijayawada or Hyderabad, right? If you look at the data from all stations together, you'll find that on an average, the temperature of the globe is increasing. And once that is known, then the question is, why is it increasing? There's a direct correlation now found with the content of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. And there comes a question, how did we know? How did we know that? Today we can measure the carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide content. But how did we know that it was so in those areas, those days? See, when there is a challenge, humans take up the challenge and try to take it up on the basis of science. The way it was done, that there's global warming and the carbon, there are these microorganisms called planktons. They breathe like any living being. They breathe in and out. Okay? And when they breathe, some carbon gets into their body. And that can be only in the gaseous forms. It might have entered in carbon dioxide form or whatever, something took place. So in this particular way, some amount of carbon or gets stored in their body, and after they are dead, there's no inflow of carbon anywhere. And carbon has its own isotopes. So that isotopes which are unstable, they die off. So if you take these objects and try to see how much of carbon 13 is there, carbon 14 is there, carbon 12 is there, you can make out that how much carbon content used to be in those days. So history of the globe is, and they also studied the elemental composition of icebergs, that you put a kind of a stick by which deep down whatever is the ice, you can bring it out. Now here also you can see that on the ice different things which are on contact with it through atmosphere, they settle, correct? And on that another ice layer grows, on that another ice layer grows. So the older ice layer is deeper down, and you bring it out and make a mass spectroscopic study, you can recreate the elemental composition of the ice in different layers. That is the older layer up to the newer layer. And this is the way it has been concluded. So it is not out of any thought or fancy that people are saying that there is a global warming. And global warming, you can find out, it has been going on for about last 400 years. Why last 400 years? Why wasn't it before? Because many people said that today is the global warming that is taking place. It was like the past ice age. Ice ages came and ice ages went. But here it is not an ice age. It is to do with carbon content. Carbon dioxide content in the air that is changing. And how could it have changed? It is only with industrial revolution. Yes. So therefore, what is happening? The industrial revolution took place in a certain pockets. It was in England. It was in, say, Netherlands, France, Germany, etc. But the effect, and United States finally, but effect of it is global. So you did something locally, but the globe is going to suffer. So you have You have every nation now today has a responsibility, and today the entire negotiation that is going on is on the basis of to assign on whom the duty is to be assigned. Now you see what was happening chronologically 400 years back we could work out. But there's a method. But when you talk that there was a Ganesha's head was there, where is the method? Method is never given. If there were uh, if there was Pushpak Viman, then at least what a relic of a Pushpak Viman should be found somewhere. And my question here is, why couldn't humans fly? Let us come to the science of that. Humans wanted to fly all the time. Leonardo da Vinci had made so many pictures of wings of birds, etc. But humans could not fly because of only one thing. One of them is the anatomical formation. We cannot change our anatomy. Yes, this is what she teaches in the first year itself. That we are like this and we will continue to be like this unless evolution changes it again. Alright, this is one. Second point is that we are heavier than air. Had we not been heavier, we should be floating. Correct? But how do birds fly? Birds are also heavier, and that is to do with the motion of their wings. But birds' weight is low, and that is why it requires a relatively smaller thrust to push it up. But we are heavy. So a thrust has to be artificially created, and that thrust could not be created by any machine, any engine, until the automobile engine was invented. It could not be done even by the steam engine, because steam engine, lot of weight itself adds to the weight. You have the steam engine itself becomes heavier, isn't it? Because you have to carry coal. The weight versus energy is very inefficient in a steam engine, whereas more efficient because we have oil here, which has a lot of energy contained in a small amount, right? Just like your LPG gases. And it is only with an engine which was fairly light, whose fuel was fairly light, and still gives so much speed, only then aeronautics was possible. So Pushpak Viman you cannot reconstruct by reading the Ramayana. Ramayana says it was used, but you cannot construct any Pushpak Viman by reading the Ramayana, or none of these you can create by reading the Mahabharata, that this can be placed or Garuda could do these and so on. So this is the way it is going on. They said that nobody has seen, here again, it is absolute stupidity, that nobody has seen a monkey changing into a man. Alright, nobody has seen a monkey changing into a man. Now you can keep all, and this is by a minister in the cabinet. Now you can say all these silly things because you do not know what is evolution. Evolution doesn't say that I will suddenly change one day. It is a process which takes place, which even Darwin did not know. What is the process he did not know? He knew that there is a change. But what is the process of change? We can know only in the 20th century. Because there is a question of mutation and all these. And that is how it takes place. So today when you come to the question of scientific temper, there are many points to be added. And when it comes to scientific temper, one of the most important things that is there, if you want to understand what it is, I would recommend we go back to Jawaharlal Nehru's book, The Discovery of India. And it is here, there is a long discussion what scientific temper is. Scientific temper in no way dismisses what our ancient history had given us. It does not dismiss at all. It tells in a very it tells with evidence that what we did. And it also tells what we didn't do or what we couldn't do. Now, for example, whatever we did actually is never told. For example, Indian mathematics, the contribution of Aryabhatta is never told. Aryabhatta, I would say his biggest contribution was something still that he gave the value of pi as 3.1416. Today we know the 3.14159 and so on. So what was his error? Error was in the 6th decimal place, isn't it? Now, for in the 5th century AD, isn't it an achievement? But nobody tells about it, and I believe there is a reason for that. Because if you tell about it, you have to tell the process. And once you tell the process of one thing, people will ask the process of another thing. That is, yes, now you are telling me 3.1415916. You have told the process. Now tell me the process by which an elephant head can be put on a human baby. So if you tell the process of one, immediately it will lead you to a question of a process in another. And that is why, so that science is a process, and as Bernal tries to explain in his book, in a very wonderful book, he never defines what is science. He never defines. He says, what are the parameters in science? And in the parameters of science, one of the things, it is a methodology and it is a process. Other thing, it is a cumulative collection of knowledge. That has to happen. It is an institution. It gives a worldview. And there are so many parameters are there. Now it is a methodology that has to be followed always. And that methodology has to be checked with the body of knowledge that already exists. And if there is a conflict, then you try to find out why there is a conflict. This has to be. The other thing that I heard the Mr. Dr. Harshvardhan, the Minister of State at that time of Science and Technology, was saying that we discovered algebra. We discovered zero. But we have given up all the honor of algebra discovery to the Arabs. Now that is not true. Discovery of zero is a process. It is not that suddenly we discover zero. It did not take place. It is a long process, and it was the Arabs who understood that yes, this is a numeral system which is most systematic. The Indian we should not say zero. We should say yes, there was a discovery of the numeral process. And it was a numeral process that Arabs recognized this is better than the Roman numeral method. Like 30, if I have to write. I have to write 3 x's, isn't it? 30. Suppose I want to write 31, then I have to write 3 x's and then 1. Then if I had to write 131, then I have to put a C for 100, 3 crosses and then 1. Now suppose I have to add 131 to 131, how would you do? C, then 3 crosses and 1. Below you write C to 3 crosses 1, 1. Now what is the rule for adding? The Roman numeral system does not help you. If I have to multiply, then what is the rule? The rule doesn't exist. So it is the Indian numeral system which was enriched by many people, including the Arabs. That is why. I'll give you an example. I have friends in Iran. When they write their language, they write from left to right. But when they calculate, numbers are written always from left to right. Okay, right to left for writing, but left to right for numeral system. Because this numeral system is the most scientific numeral system. Now this was taken by them. We all talk of Islamic invasions, isn't it? We all hear of Muhammad of Ghazni might have invaded India for 16, 17 times, etc. That might have happened. But Muhammad of Ghazni did one thing, good thing. He left behind one person, or maybe a large number of people, and one of them was Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni read about the knowledge of India. It is not the mathematics alone. It is the flora and fauna of India. He's 17 years, he stayed here and he wrote the book Kitab al-Hind, in brief we call Kitab al-Hind. That went to Europe, and that is how the entire knowledge grows. So there's nothing called that this is exclusively yours and that is exclusively theirs. Knowledge system is never like that. Why it is not never like that? Because nature is never like that. Nature, when you talk of scientific laws, ever since the time of Newton, we accept that scientific laws are universal. And this was Newton's singular contribution. That before that, nobody had said the scientific laws are universal. And here I'll tell one story. This story I heard myself in a speech by Professor Abdul Salam, that around the same time in the 17th century, both in India and England, two buildings were built. One of them in England was the St. Paul's Cathedral. And around at the same time in India, it was the Taj Mahal. These are wonders of the world. But the world did not benefit from either of them. But on the same year, a book appeared. And the book was Newton's Principia Mathematica. And after the book appeared, the world of science has completely changed. Like my panelists would say, that after Vesalius's anatomy, the question of anatomy completely changed. And how did it change? Because here came the basic framework of science: experiment, observation, inference. Dead bodies were cut open. Dead bodies, and along with that, Vesalius, he did the drawings. Without his drawings, without the record, he did the drawings so that others could understand. And he was taking great risks while doing it. He could be hanged for doing it. Because a dead body means your soul is resting in peace, isn't it? And now you are interfering with the soul. So if Vesalius was caught with that, he could have been hanged. It was an illegal to bring out a dead body from the grave and do the anatomy. I've seen the place in Padova where Vesalius used to teach. The room had no windows, so that nobody could see what is happening. Nobody could see that Vesalius was actually interfering with the soul or not. So these are certain things that we have to keep in mind. And when Nehru writes it, he makes a statement, and with a little elaboration with that statement, I would stop. The statement actually says that scientific temper is a temper of a free individual. Temper of a free individual, and as you understand, the word free appears. So what is freedom? This question will automatically come. And how is it linked with the question of science? In order to understand that, I will give another very important statement given by another person from India. He is in India, and this definition is accepted. Even Bernal uses this definition, that science is the cognition of necessity and freedom is the recognition of necessity. Whereas the second one comes from Engels. Who developed it? From Hegel. And let us take the first one, the second one first, and then go to the first one. We often talk of issues like freedom from hunger. Now, freedom from hunger is what? Freedom from hunger is that. Because, and it is universal, because all of us are built in the same way. We are all built in the same way. So there's only one way. And so in order to give freedom from hunger, you should be given food. Freedom from thirst, you should be given water. Now question is how to do that. Now this is the recognition. But why is the cognition? Cognition is you should grow food. You should know the method how to grow food. And you should also know the method how the food can be brought to the hungry. In the last part, we often ignore, most of the time. we often ignore. Food production is 250 million tons, but half of India goes to bed with hungry. It is known like this. So it is the recognition of the necessity that is science. And that process is universal. That process cannot differ from you to me or depending upon the different classes of people. For example, Pavlov's great experiment. Pavlov's great experiment with dogs. Keep the dogs hungry. And before giving the food, you ring a bell. And you will see the salivation coming out of the... But later what you do, don't give them the food. But just ring the bell. You will see the salivation taking place. Okay? Because it knows that its own freedom is now getting recognized. This is the initiation of this process. So this, in brief, is what we must keep in mind when we talk of scientific temper and scientific. And one of the basic things that is, freedom is never recognized. It is a logical steps in understanding the process of this cognition. And it is done, in my opinion, in a very deliberate way. That if you know the explanation of one, you would like to know the explanation of something else. In order that something else, which is more costly, you can stop it, you also stop all these things. And in the process, you develop a rift within the society. That way your love for the country has to be now redefined. Whether you believe in this nonsense or you don't believe in this nonsense, that finally is going to tell you whether you're patriotic or not. So this is a very complex process. I would say this is a very complex process of redefining what we call the idea of India. The idea of India, which has been given to us by our freedom movement, that idea of India is a deliberate attempt to redefine it. And here we should take a stand. What is our idea of India? And in this, our idea of India, I think scientific temper should play a very important role. This is my submission to all of you, and I think we can discuss this question in what subsequently is going to follow. I'm looking very eagerly to listen to our young friend who is a scientist beginning her career in science and in a discipline which I understand can serve many, many people. And she has already told me that our approach on serving the people, building big institutions, is not the end by itself. Before building that, many other things have to. So we should try to follow that, how that recognition can be satisfied through the cognitive process which they are going to follow, and we should facilitate their cognitive process. That also is our duty. Thank you very much.